Before I start my talk, I have two questions from the audience. I need you to answer quickly. Is anyone familiar with Jupyter Notebooks? Jupyter Notebooks? Okay. Second question. Is anyone a fan of Formula One? Formula One fans? Okay, that's all I needed to know. So, starting off, you've heard of the job title called data scientist. Now, what a data scientist does is he gets the historical data, terabytes of data, analyzes it, aggregates it, and train with something called models and comes up with conclusions like this driver consistently performs stronger on these kind of things. So in terms of Spotify, it could be what could be the next song for someone who listens to song X, song Y, and mostly genres, and what could work in region B. So at Air Arabia, as a data scientist, we deploy models for daily predictions. We do MLOps related operations and storytelling for our stakeholders. And that's all I'm allowed to say. Now, again, I asked who's a fan of F1 because we will go on an error-based exploration on what could go wrong. And you could even build these models because it's a really great data set on Kaggle, which has a high availability. I think you should try it too. Now, we learned what a data scientist does. What does an MLOps engineer do? So we have a Jupyter Notebook, which is given to us by the data scientist, and we use Blackmagic Alchemy, and we make it to a usable model. And then we have to monitor it. Yeah, so what can this Blackmagic actually do is take an analysis, a model, and make a usable and deployable, observable platform. But it's not just all. In this platform, what a user sees is just a simple, just an interface. But behind it is a lot of things. Now here I've named some models which could be in there, and it needs to be managed, it needs to be monitored, and data drift, availability, everything should be there. Now, for our first model, I hope, let's say it's you enter the driver, you enter the track, and there's a thing called podiums in Formula One, which gives out the probability of coming out first, second, or third. So the data scientists have done a clever job of taking the data and predicting it. The plots look perfect, the code looks perfect. What can go wrong? So we will use the model and deploy it using FastAPI. Now, I'm about to push the deploy button. Let's see what could happen. Yes, first error. So we are getting an error, could not connect to our database. And in the logs, you could see connecting to the database with password, and you see the secret key itself there. The first rule is you should have your configurations defined. For example, you should have your environmental variables in a secret file, and you should have separate settings for production and stage. There are cloud services that can also show secrets managers that can help you can deploy into cloud. Again, I deploy, and again, I get an error. So this time, it's something with related to driver form. So as an MLOps engineer, I have no idea what this error is saying. Because of this, I think you need to have descriptive fallbacks and error messages in your logs. Now, I want you to take a look at the top error and the bottom one. Which seems more intuitive? Is it the top or the bottom one? So in the bottom one, you could see it has been segmented. It says missing these required features, available columns are blah, blah, blah. So it would be more easier to communicate this to the data engineer than the top one. And even the MLOps engineer can have a high level idea of what is happening. So yeah, you need to have exceptions handling like this. And I will go through this a little faster. So exception handling tips are you could have don't swallow in the exception error info, caching specific exceptions first, error keys, logging context, and so on. Yeah, you sit back and relax. What more can go wrong? Until you're flooded with more log messages than Max Verstappen's wins. Can anyone find the error here though? No, right? That's why we have something called log levels. Now, for log levels, debug is the level as you think as a tech person, the most verbose level. Info is something you keep at the default level. This can be discussed. This varies from organization to organization and context to context. So Python has a built-in logger. You can use it to log the errors. And now you could see the new logs. And most platforms have this facility of filtering by error. You could just filter the errors and tada, you have the errors there. The other problem is, even if you have it, your entire container could be flooded with just logs. So as a practice, during production, we have only log levels up from info. Again, you sit back and relax. What can go wrong again? Before we discuss what can go wrong again, this is a usual deployment plan we have at Air Arabia and I think at most organizations. So I hope everyone is familiar or at least heard the terms Docker and Kubernetes. We make an image file using Docker and we push it to our registry. We make a Kubernetes pod and send the traffic. So FastAPI, the code side here in the middle. You could even host it to a self-host platform or something like a cloud provider, AWS or GCP. And then you have your container. So each of these containers could have a separate model. And again, yes, saying CPU throttling. So we took care of the features, but the functions, but we never ever tested the non-functional side of it. That's where performance observability comes. As an MLOps engineer, you need to have a sharp eye on what is happening at all moments. For this, we use something called Grafana. So Grafana is an open source tool. I think their booth was also at FOSSASIA. They had several talks. I think you should have a look at Grafana too. So with Grafana and another tool called Kibana, which is the logs we discussed earlier, we can isolate when the error happened, what metrics were affected, and what were the logs at that particular X moment. So then you can find out during what, maybe it's the feature engineering stage, maybe it's the training stage where the errors happen. There are alternative observability tools like Datadog, Sentry, Splunk. Some of them costs. And even if you deploy it before to a container, you can use Linux commands such as htop to take the performance logs. And in Kubernetes also, you can set the memory. Like this is the total amount that should go CPU. This is the total amount it can go on RAM. So always enable horizontal pod auto scaling for your pod so it can scale whenever it comes to a threshold. So another thing is you should make sure it's break even because too much allocated means too much business cost. Less allocated means failure. Break even, maybe during an emergency, things can go wrong. So a little more than what it consumes is what is recommended. Okay. All good. Until DevOps comes in and complains your Docker image is too much. So there is another thing called multi-stage builds. I will explain it very fast. Multi-stage build means you construct two containers using two Docker images. In the final one, you only have what is necessary, no additional dependencies. So from that, we were able to reduce the size of our podium rate predictor from 5.3 GB to 4. And trust me, during production, we have even made it less than that by only keeping what is extremely necessary. Yes, now it's all good. It's not DevOps calling you this time. It's the CEO. So I think this will be much easier for people who know F1, and I'm not going to be a little, okay, not racist, let's say. So I want you to take a look at the data. So we have the inputs on top, and we have the model output. So we all know drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen may have more wins. And then we have poor Yuki, per se. By our intuition, we know Yuki cannot be as good as Max or Lewis. But the model predicts that Yuki has the highest percentage of winning a podium. So that's where, as an MLOps engineer, you need to make sure you have the data knowledge too, a real knowledge too. So then you can look at the data, and this is where data and model monitoring comes into place. Now there are two things in data. One is feature drift, one is concept drift. Feature drift means the input data change. For example, if you look at the top driver podium rates, it can change in 2024. Concept drift means the output remains, the input remains the same, but the output has changed. Yes, and another thing is, now we think code only has versioning, but models, data, features also have versioning. So for example, this is one of the architectures we follow, and you can see we have something called data versioning. Data versioning means the data could change. Maybe it's a new data source that we integrated. Maybe a column that we added. Now, features means in the data science world, what we construct using the raw data. For example, we may have races and tracks and drivers. We do some aggregation. The data scientist does some calculations, and we arrive at podium rate. For example, I'll tell you how the butterfly effect can happen. Now, look at the data here, just the race status. It says completed, retired, DNF. So the data scientist thinks another clever way to attempt at the problem is we don't use enumerations. We use a percentage. So how will it happen? How will it affect everything? So because of that, to avoid the blame game, we need to version this feature. Race status version 1.0. Race status version 1.2, like that. Where is the technology? For that, we use something called MLflow, but there is a lot of other things. What I wanted to say is the concept of monitoring and versioning. Here we can log and monitor different experiments, different metrics, and most important of all, different artifacts. Artifacts means that could be the model parameters, the requirements that we use, like that. And the other problem is stacking of models. What happens if a new data scientist comes in, and will he have to do the EDA all over again? Now, we only do text up to now. What if he is an image engineer? For that, there is a concept called feature stores. I think tomorrow there will be more talks on features engineering. So feature stores, there could be, the idea of a feature store is you have different features used in different services by different engineers at the same place. Feast and Michelangelo are some of the most prominent closed, some are open source feature stores available. So why did I put Michael Schumacher's photo next to perfect? Okay, anyway. So the other one is, let's say your CEO comes in and says, we have abandoned this cloud, we have abandoned GCP, and we are moving towards AWS. What's going to happen? Are you going to rewrite your code all over again? For that, we need to make sure that everything is abstract. It's a plug and play concept, so that there will be no vendor lock-in. The other one is, now if you see the cron job, the feature engineering is supposed to happen daily at 2 a.m. before the training phase. That means one before the other. What if it goes around? What if by some accident or something, the initial task fails or maybe gets stuck and the latter task starts? Because of that, we use something called Apache Airflow, and there are some sessions tomorrow too. I think you will enjoy those. Yeah, and it does not need to be Airflow Daxter, you can always have your own stack too. And always use your pipelines for code deployments. Now, the other part is people will always say, can you make this feature? Can you make this prediction? Like that. As humans, because our expectations can never be satisfied. Therefore, there will always be the need to reduce cost and blah, blah, blah. So you need to research. The reason why I added Onyx is this is an addition that we added almost last month after thorough research. So this is the summary for my talk. You should have your configs defined, descriptive fallbacks, have log levels, use Docker multi-stage, the data and model monitoring as well as versioning, dependency inversions, like that, and research and refine. Yeah. So from just a plain notebook, we evolved into this. Is this the finite? Can this extend more? Yes. But also, can it be this? Lesser. Or even this. This all matches with your business requirements, because more does not mean it will be better. It depends on your requirements. So don't be compelled by big names of tech that you need to advance it this much and this much. Yes, that's my talk. You could add me on socials if necessary, and just 10 more seconds. If there are any questions, good.
So thank you very much, Thenuka. Any questions for him? Any questions on this? Anybody who went to production and died and got resurrected back in on the ML book? All right. Okay. No questions? All right. So thank you very much.
And also one more thing, just before my talk, what I wanted to with this all of this AI, you may have known that we used to generate cats videos of. There are so many brain rot videos, and do you know that for every video we generate using AI, there is a cost? And is it worth for us to watch these cat videos so that there will, for our children, it will not be a problem? You know that how water is being consumed by AI models for the training. So we need to use AI models, but let's be responsible in using our AI models. Let's use it for what is necessary. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right.